Hey everybody, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. Welcome to Sit Down. Comedian Jeff Dunham is here with us. Jeff Dunham's completely unrehearsed, last-minute holiday pandemic special coming to Comedy Central. Nice to meet you, man. How are you?
I'm fine, DJ. Thanks for having me. And you know, just before we started chatting here, you know, when I called, we started talking about what's behind you there, and I judge people.
It's crazy how much you can learn about somebody just from what's behind them. I mean, you got a great setup. You have one of the best setups I've seen so far.
Yeah, it's all kinds of toys from my childhood and toys I still collect on eBay and all that. But you know, I noticed you have some books there. So you have an appropriate amount of books, and there's another bookshelf over there. Whenever you see politicians on, they're always trying to look really smart because all you see is books, and they put Shakespeare and political stuff and all that. You know, I wrote an autobiography a few years ago. This is my ego. Every time one of those bookshelves comes up, including yours, I'm sitting there going, "Is my book there?"
Now, if I had your book on the shelf, that would have been an example of the politician placing the book right there. Because, like you're saying, it's like, have they actually read these books that are behind them? Like that's the main question that we have here. Clearly,
actually, DJ, my first thought if I'd have seen my book on your shelf would be, "Oh, this is creepy."
There you go. Well, it's one thing to have a book on a shelf. It's another thing to watch a special. And, you know, I've been watching you for a long time. So have a lot of people. And listen, it's been a crazy year. And you've done comedy in a lot of different forms. But doing it during a pandemic has certainly had its challenges. So what was it like just to get out there and do a special, especially having not done it for, you know, at all?
Sure, for a long time. I mean, you know, I was used to the big arenas. We'd gotten up to numbers of easily, you know, anywhere between 6 and 10, 11,000 people. So that's what I was used to. And I walked off stage that last night in March, not having any idea that this was going to last this long. I did actually predict to my promoter, I said, listening to the news at this time, it was like the first week in March, I said, I don't think we're going to be back to these giant venues until Christmas of next year, Christmas of 21. And he goes, "Oh, no, that's not going to happen." And now this is kind of what it's looking like. I mean, even if the vaccine, you know, they're going to start giving it like today or tomorrow to people in Florida, something like that. But even if that happens, the big giant things aren't going to come back. We'll be in small theaters, 2,000 seats, but crazy. So sitting at home, to answer your question, it's like, what am I going to do here? And I started seeing some other folks coming out with specials, and I thought, you know what, I can do this too. I don't have to be in a drive-in theater. I think we can do this legit, like with a real audience. And so what I did is got together with a handful of my writer friends, and I said, here's the subject matter. Let's write some jokes. So they went off and wrote jokes, not with each other, and sent them all to me. And for 2 weeks, I sat in my office and just cobbled them all together. You know, for subject matter, for character, not one of these jokes that you hear in my special on Friday night had any other human being ever heard me speak it out loud. Not my wife, nobody. So this was completely unrehearsed. And by the way, I came up with that ridiculous title. And I said to my guys, I said, as a joke, let's see what Comedy Central says. And they said, "No, that's great. Let's keep it." So it's that ridiculously crazy long title.
I mean, the title is perfect for so many different reasons. And like you said, like you are used to performing a stand-up special or performing your set for months on end before the special. So once you got out there and actually did it, you know, what was the most interesting thing about that to you?
Well, I think, you know, if I had gone from one night doing 8,000 people to the next night doing 100 people, which is what we had at this, and everybody in masks and tables socially distanced, 4 to a tabletop, and that's it. If I had gone from that to that in a 24-hour period, it would have been horrible. But I was sitting at home for 8 months with my wife and 5-year-old twin boys doing nothing, you know, performing wise. I'd pull out a sock puppet. The biggest laugh I got was when I pulled out a chip clip from my 5-year-old sitting at dinner. I started making the chip clips, and they thought that was the most genius, hilarious thing ever. So I'm like, I got to get out of this house. So yeah, and you know, and it is the perfect time of year for this. And I left out politics. There's no political jokes, because if you're not sick of politics by now, there's something wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Word. So, and I also made this special a little more family friendly. It's PG. Anybody can sit down and watch this thing. And I just think it's time for some goofy, stupid fun. And those are some of the things that are doing really well on the air right now. The Disney sing-alongs, come on, that's getting big ratings. I can do a little better than that.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, and that is just adapting to the times. And for somebody like you who's done comedy in all these different points of your life, what's most important in terms of, melding your style to what's actually happening in the industry?
Well, I think, to get serious about that from a business standpoint, I think a stand-up comic or any performer, you have to morph with what's going on in society and give the audience what they really want or what they don't know that they want. I think Apple and Steve Jobs was the best at that. He would create a desire for something that we had no idea we needed. And I think a good comedian will do the same thing. You'll respond to what's going on in society, and whatever you're talking about is relatable and fun. And that's the same thing when I create my characters. I want a character that people can identify with, and that they can laugh at, and that's how I create them.
I think another cool thing is that, you can have a joke or a character from the 90s and it still has staying power today. And obviously Peanut falls into that category. So what does it mean to you that, stuff that you did decades ago is still getting people to laugh here in 2020?
Yeah, well, and that's a good foray into the special, because every bit of it is brand new except for what you just mentioned. One of those bits with Peanut that I did on my first Tonight Show appearance with Carson back in 1990. And this was a bit that I'd worked on for 12 years. I started working on it in the 10th or 11th grade. And for the next 12 years, worked on different versions of it, trying to perfect it with a goal of getting on the Tonight Show before my 10-year high school reunion. And I made it by 2 months. And yeah. And so you're right. Some of those characters are enduring. Peanut's been around since 90, I don't know, but 86. But Jose Jalapeno on a stick. And this is one of the guys that's a little questionable right now for some people. If you don't really listen to the show and you see it out of context, he's a Mexican jalapeno on a stick. And he's been in my act since 1983. And I don't do, racist jokes. He's a jalapeno on a stick. That's it. We do jalapeno and stick jokes. And he's in the show. And that's one of those bits that has just been around forever. And it was a family favorite. And so I thought I'll put that in the show so people will see that on Friday night. And that was the only part of the show that made me nervous, was doing that.
I hear you. You obviously have to be conscious of what's happening, and you have to be conscious of your audience. And speaking of an audience, you mentioned the Tonight Show and Carson. Like, listen, comedians had come on there for a long, long time, but I would imagine that your stand-up was a little bit different than what he had seen before. So what do you remember about that night and, finally making it to the Tonight Show?
Yeah, I was on with him 5 times. And what a lot of people don't know is that he started as a ventriloquist and a magician. So Carson was a variety performer way back when. So he had an appreciation for the art. I don't know if he still had a love for the art, but he had at least an appreciation for it. And I just remember, I had worked a long time before getting to that point. And most comedians are out in Los Angeles at least a few years before you had any thought of getting on the Tonight Show. And so I'd been out there a year and a half, and my craft was good, but my comedic chops weren't that great. And I'd go up at comedy clubs, following guys like Seinfeld and Jay Leno, and you really had to be on top of your game. So that's when I knew that if this career was going to last more than my 15 minutes of fame, I had to concentrate on the characters and the jokes. And I think that's why people keep coming back.
When you think about ventriloquism, it's obviously been such a huge part of your story. Are you surprised that more people don't do it? Do you feel like a ton of people do it and you've just cut through? How do you kind of look at that from the outside in?
Well, ventriloquism has a troubled past. In vaudeville days, we weren't on the main stage. We were shoved in front of the curtain while they reset the stage for the real acts, like the jugglers. So, nowadays, I do look at what I do and I think, how is this possible? Here's a guy, drawing these big crowds and have these accolades and comedy specials. This is why I'm pretty sure, DJ, that we are living in a simulation, because it's the Matrix, because there's a dad and a kid playing us somewhere. Our world is their game. And the kid says to the dad, "Dad, I'm going to make a ventriloquist really famous and popular." Yeah, that'll be great. And the dad goes, "That's ridiculous, but yeah, okay, try that. That's nuts."
It's crazy to see what actually sticks. And like you're saying, like you just start messing around as a kid and then boom, here you are doing it all these years later. And
Well,
now
one
people
thing I
just
impart
watch
on
it.
my kids is, you put in your 30,000 hours or your 10,000 hours, whatever you want to pay it, it's something, and hopefully you're good at it by the end of that. And so that's one of those things that I tell my kids is find your passion in life. Not my 5-year-olds. I have grown daughters. Yeah, I'm telling my 5-year-olds, find your passion. What's
Your
your problem?
5-year-olds need to know that right this moment. They got to start early. They got to get their hours in.
Get out of that sand pile and start doing something worth it. But I do tell my daughters, find a passion in life, find something that you really, really, really love and stick with it and have fun. And, I think that works out for people.
Well, it certainly worked out for you. Looking forward to a special on Friday. Jeff, nice to meet you, man. Keep that
Same here,
backdrop
man.
going.
And I keep looking at your lovely wedding pictures. I want to meet your wife someday, or unless that's your parents. Still your
No,
parents?
that's fine. Yeah, it's me and my wife from last year. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, congratulations.
Thank
Your
you, man.
anniversary.